Have you ever noticed that routines seem to work best right before they fall apart? You get inspired. You buy a new journal. You make a plan. You decide that starting tomorrow, things are going to be different. Maybe you'll wake up earlier. Maybe you'll exercise every morning. Maybe you'll meditate, read, stretch, drink more water, and finally get organized. For a few days, everything goes well. You feel productive, focused, disciplined. You begin to imagine that you've finally figured it out. And then life happens. You sleep poorly. You have a stressful week. Something unexpected demands your attention. You miss a day, then another. Before long, the routine that seemed so promising has quietly disappeared. I think most of us have experienced some version of this, and for a long time, I assumed the problem was consistency. I thought successful people had somehow mastered the ability to stick with their routines no matter what was happening around them. But the more I paid attention, the more I began to question that assumption. Because if routines were simply a matter of discipline, why do so many intelligent, capable, motivated people struggle to maintain them? Maybe the problem isn't that we're bad at routines. Maybe the problem is that we're trying to build perfect ones. A perfect routine is a beautiful thing. It works wonderfully on perfect days. The problem is that perfect days are surprisingly rare. Most of life happens somewhere between our best intentions and reality. Life is messy. People get sick. Plans change. Energy fluctuates. Unexpected responsibilities show up. Some mornings we wake up ready to conquer the world. Other mornings we're just trying to make it through the day. Yet, many of the routines we create leave no room for any of that. They're designed for the person we hope to be, not the person who actually has to live them. Think about exercise for a moment. A lot of people create a workout routine that requires 45 minutes, a gym membership, the right clothes, the right energy level, and a perfectly open schedule. For a while it works. Then a busy week arrives, or a project deadline, or a family obligation, and suddenly the entire thing collapses. Not because exercise stopped mattering, because the routine had too many conditions attached to it. The same thing happens with journaling. Someone decides they're going to write 3 pages every morning. They buy the perfect notebook. They commit to the practice. 3 pages become 2, then 1. Then they miss a day. And somehow missing a day turns into not opening the journal for 3 months. Again, not because journaling stopped being valuable, because the routine was built around an ideal version of life. Meditation is another good example. Many people believe that if they can't sit quietly for 20 minutes, they might as well not do it at all, so they skip it, and what could have been 1 minute becomes no minutes. I've noticed that this pattern shows up everywhere. The missed day isn't usually the problem. The story we tell ourselves afterward is the problem. We begin thinking things like, I was doing so well. I've fallen off track. I need to start over. One missed day becomes a missed week. One missed week becomes abandoning the practice entirely. Not because we consciously decided to stop, because perfection quietly transformed a small interruption into a perceived failure. And I've always found that strange. If you miss one meal, you don't give up eating. If you miss one night's sleep, you don't decide sleep isn't for you. Yet when it comes to personal growth, we often treat a single disruption as evidence that the entire system is broken. Maybe the problem isn't inconsistency. Maybe it's our relationship with interruption. Because interruptions aren't exceptions to life, they're part of life. A routine that cannot survive interruptions isn't actually designed for reality. It's designed for fantasy. That realization changed the way I think about daily practices. Instead of asking, what's the ideal routine? I've started asking a different question. What's the smallest version of this practice that I can still do on my worst days? That's a very different question. If your meditation practice normally lasts 20 minutes, could it survive as 1 minute? If you usually journal for a page, could it survive as a sentence? If you normally walk for an hour, could it survive as a trip around the block? If your reading habit normally involves a chapter, could it survive as a single page? The goal isn't lowering your standards. The goal is making the practice resilient. Because something fascinating happens when a practice becomes small enough to survive difficult days. It survives. And survival matters more than intensity. Many people can maintain an ambitious routine for a week. Fewer can maintain a simple practice for years. Yet, it's the years that matter. Small actions accumulate, tiny moments compound. The practices that shape our lives are often not the dramatic ones. They're the ones we keep returning to. And that's another thing I've noticed. The most meaningful routines aren't necessarily the ones we perform perfectly. They're the ones we come back to. There are certain practices that seem to call to us throughout our lives. Maybe it's walking, maybe it's writing, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's sitting quietly with a cup of tea before the day begins. We drift away from them. Life gets busy, months pass, sometimes years, and then somehow we find our way back. That return is interesting to me because it suggests that some practices aren't valuable simply because they make us more productive or efficient. They're valuable because they help us reconnect with something. They remind us who we are beneath all the noise. Maybe that's why I've become less interested in perfect routines and more interested in sustainable ones. The kind that can bend without breaking. The kind that expect interruptions. The kind that leave room for being human. Because real life has seasons. There are seasons when everything flows. And there are seasons when simply showing up is enough. A good routine should be able to survive both. There are practices many of us have started and abandoned dozens of times. Walking, journaling, quiet reflection. Yet somehow, they keep returning. Or perhaps we keep returning to them. And maybe that's the clue. The practices that belong to us don't demand perfection. They simply keep inviting us back. So perhaps the goal isn't to build a routine you'll never break. Perhaps the goal is to build one you'll always be willing to return to.